Part 1, The Challenge Arrives. The Dawn of Doubt. The morning sun of Kepler 442c cast long shadows across the human engineering outpost as Commander Marcus Webb finished his coffee and reviewed the day's construction reports. 3 months into their terraforming mission, his team had already exceeded every timeline the Galactic Council had set for them. But today would be different. Today, they had visitors. Commander, Lieutenant Jake Morrison called out from the communication station, his voice carrying an edge of tension. The alien delegation's transport just entered our atmosphere. They'll be here within the hour. Webb set down his mug and straightened his uniform. He'd been expecting this visit, though not looking forward to it. The Galactic Council had sent representatives from 3 different species to evaluate human engineering capabilities firsthand. According to the briefing files, most of the galaxy still considered humans to be primitive newcomers who got lucky with a few technological breakthroughs. Arrival of the skeptics. The alien transport touched down with barely a whisper, its advanced gravitic engines making human technology look crude by comparison. Webb watched through the observation windows as 4 figures emerged from the sleek vessel. Leading them was Ambassador Kethtar, a crystalline being whose body refracted the morning light into dancing rainbows. Behind him walked General Vox Neen, a towering figure encased in what appeared to be living metal armor that shifted and flowed with each step. Dr. Ythera followed closely, her 6 limbs moving with spider-like grace as she carried various scanning devices. Finally came Engineer Fluxoam, whose gaseous form was contained within a sophisticated environmental suit that sparked with bioelectric energy. Sergeant Rodriguez, gather the team, Webb ordered. Full dress protocol. Let's show our guests that humans know how to make an impression. Elena Rodriguez nodded and activated the comm system. All personnel to the main platform. Honor formation. This is not a drill. The challenge unveiled. Within minutes, Webb's core team had assembled on the main platform. Lieutenant Morrison stood at attention, his experience in structural engineering evident in the way he assessed the alien visitors. Corporal Ben Carter had emerged from the supply depot, still wiping his hands on a maintenance rag. Sergeant Rodriguez had somehow managed to clean the hydraulic fluid from her jumpsuit and looked every inch the professional heavy equipment operator. Ambassador Kethtar stepped forward, his crystalline form chiming softly as he moved. When he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonic overtones that the universal translators rendered into perfect, if oddly musical, English. Commander Webb, the ambassador began, we have come to observe your species' engineering methods. The Galactic Council has received unusual reports about human capabilities. Reports that frankly strain credibility. General Vox Neen's metallic voice cut through the air like grinding gears. Your species claims to have built a functional city in 6 months on Titan Station. Our engineers calculated such a project would require at least 3 years, even with advanced automation. Dr. Ythera added, her multiple limbs gesturing expressively, the biological impossibility of your success rate suggests either massive calculation errors in our models or... She paused, significant exaggeration in your reports. The impossible deadline. Commander Webb felt his team tense beside him, but he maintained his calm demeanor. He'd dealt with skeptical aliens before, though never quite this directly. I understand your concerns, Webb replied evenly. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words. Engineer Fluxoam's environmental suit sparked brighter. A demonstration? Commander, we are not here for parlor tricks. Engineering is a precise science requiring. The Crimson Gorge, Ambassador Kethtar interrupted, his crystalline features shifting to focus on Webb. 5 kilometers from here. The chasm measures 200 meters across and 300 meters deep. Our geological surveys indicate that spanning it would require a suspension bridge with specialized foundations. Webb nodded. He knew the gorge well. His team had surveyed it weeks ago as a potential crossing point for the terraforming equipment. Standard galactic protocol, General Vox Neen continued, would require 6 months of planning, environmental impact studies, and careful construction. Even with our fastest assembly techniques, actual construction would take 2 weeks minimum. The ambassador's form brightened as he delivered what was clearly meant to be the crushing blow. We challenge your team to span the Crimson Gorge in 8 hours. If humans are truly as capable as your reports suggest, this should be a simple task. Accepting the impossible. The aliens waited, clearly expecting Webb to decline or request additional time and resources. Dr. Ythera was already activating recording devices, apparently anticipating the humans' inevitable excuses. Lieutenant Morrison leaned closer to Webb and whispered, "Sir, 8 hours is cutting it close, but with the prefab components we've been stockpiling." 3 hours, Webb said loudly, cutting off his lieutenant mid-sentence. The alien delegation fell silent. Even the ambient energy discharge from Fluxo-M's suit seemed to pause. "I'm sorry, Commander," Ambassador Kethtar said, his harmonics wavering slightly. "Did you say 3 hours?" "That's correct," Webb replied, clasping his hands behind his back. "My team will span the Crimson Gorge in 3 hours. Will that be sufficient demonstration of human engineering capabilities?" General Voxnin's armor plates shifted with what might have been agitation. "Commander, I believe there may be a translation error. 3 hours to build a bridge across a 200-meter chasm is physically impossible. Even if you had all materials prepared and a team of 1,000 workers." "We have 4 people," Sergeant Rodriguez interrupted with a grin that made the alien step back slightly. "And trust me, General, that's more than enough." Dr. Ythera's instruments were now scanning frantically. "Commander Webb, my readings indicate no signs of deception or chemical influence. Are you seriously accepting this challenge?" Webb looked at his team. Morrison was already pulling up gorge specifications on his datapad. Carter was calculating material requirements in his head. Rodriguez was stretching like she was preparing for a workout. They were ready, and they were confident. "Ambassador Kethtar," Webb said formally, "on behalf of humanity and the Terran Engineering Corps, I accept your challenge. 3 hours to span the Crimson Gorge. When do we start?" Part 2, Human Ingenuity Unleashed. The clock starts ticking. "Time starts now," Ambassador Kethtar announced, his crystalline form pulsing with what the humans had learned to recognize as intense curiosity. Dr. Ythera immediately began recording with multiple devices while General Voxnin positioned himself for the best tactical view of the operation. Commander Webb didn't waste a second. "Morrison, Rodriguez, Carter, you know the drill. Crimson Gorge Protocol, modified for speed. We've got 3 hours to show our friends here what humans can do when we put our minds to it." The team scattered with an efficiency that made Engineer Fluxo-M's environmental suit flicker with surprise. Within 30 seconds, Lieutenant Morrison was already at his portable workstation, his fingers flying across holographic displays as he pulled up geological surveys and structural calculations. "Sir," Morrison called out, never looking up from his work, "I'm seeing stable bedrock on both sides at 40 meters down. If we use the cantilever approach with the carbon fiber supports we stockpiled last month." "Do it," Webb replied, then turned to Rodriguez. "Elena, how fast can you get the heavy equipment to the gorge?" "Speed that defies logic." Sergeant Rodriguez was already climbing into the operator's seat of their largest construction mech, a 20-ton hybrid that combined earth-moving capability with precision manipulation. "Give me 12 minutes to get there, Commander. 15 if you want me to bring the whole construction kit." "Bring everything," Webb ordered. "Carter, material loadout?" Corporal Carter was consulting his datapad while jogging toward the supply depot. "We've got enough carbon fiber struts for a 250-meter span, plus the rapid set foundation compound. If Morrison's calculations are right about the bedrock depth, we can have anchors set in 40 minutes. Ambassador Kethtar moved closer to Dr. Ythera, his harmonics shifting to frequencies the humans couldn't hear. The xenobiologist's instruments were working overtime, trying to understand how the human team could coordinate so quickly without extensive planning sessions. "This is most irregular," General Voxneen muttered, his armor plates shifting nervously. "Standard protocol requires detailed engineering reviews, safety assessments, environmental impact calculations." "General," Webb said with a grin, "where we come from, we call that overthinking it. Sometimes the best plan is to just get started and adapt as you go." The human advantage. Lieutenant Morrison finished his initial calculations and looked up with the satisfied expression of an engineer who just solved a particularly elegant problem. "Commander, I've got it. We use a cable-stayed design with temporary supports. The beauty is, we can build from both sides simultaneously and meet in the middle." Engineer Fluxom's suit sparked brighter. "Cable-stayed? For a 200-meter span? The stress calculations alone would require—" "Already done," Morrison interrupted, transferring his holographic display to the main projector. "See, we anchor the main cables here and here, use the carbon fiber struts as stays, and the deck sections locked together with the magnetic coupling system Carter designed last month." Dr. Ythera studied the display with growing amazement. "Lieutenant Morrison, these calculations, you completed a full structural analysis in 4 minutes. Our best engineering teams require days for comparable complexity." Morrison shrugged as he packed his equipment. "Ma'am, my grandfather built bridges in construction zones under enemy fire. He always said that if you spend too much time planning, you'll never get anything built." Moving mountains. The sound of heavy machinery approaching made the aliens turn toward the gorge. Sergeant Rodriguez had made the 12-minute deadline with 3 minutes to spare, and she'd brought not just the main construction mech, but 2 smaller support units operating in autonomous mode. "Elena's showing off again," Carter chuckled as he supervised the loading of materials onto hovering transport platforms. She programmed those support mechs to follow terrain routes that would make a mountain goat nervous. Ambassador Kethtar watched in fascination as Rodriguez's machines began site preparation with mechanical precision. Sergeant Rodriguez appears to be controlling 3 separate machines simultaneously. "How is this possible?" "Practice," Webb replied simply. "Elena's been running heavy equipment since she was 14. Her father owned a construction company back on Earth, and she grew up thinking that operating a 20-ton mech was as normal as driving a car." The main construction mech reached the gorge edge and immediately began excavation for the anchor points. Rodriguez's movements were fluid and confident, the massive machine responding to her controls like an extension of her own body. "Bedrock at 38 meters, her voice crackled over the comm system. 2 meters ahead of Morrison's projections. That'll save us at least 10 minutes on foundation work." Coordination in chaos. General Voxneen moved closer to Commander Webb, his metallic voice carrying a note of professional curiosity. "Commander, your team operates without central coordination protocols. How do you maintain operational efficiency?" Webb gestured toward his team, scattered across the construction site but moving with obvious purpose. "General, every person on my team has been cross-trained in at least 3 specialties. Morrison can operate heavy equipment, Rodriguez understands structural engineering, Carter can do field calculations if needed. When everyone knows everyone else's job, coordination becomes automatic." As if to prove his point, Carter called out from the material staging area. "Morrison, I'm seeing stress factors in your cable calculations that might require adjustment for the local gravity differential." "Already compensated," Morrison replied without looking up from his foundation survey. "But thanks for keeping me honest, Ben." Dr. Ythera's recording devices were working at maximum capacity. This level of cross-functional expertise is unprecedented in galactic engineering protocols. Most species require specialized teams with strict role definitions. The impossible schedule. 90 minutes into the project, the first major milestone was reached. Rodriguez had completed excavation and foundation placement on both sides of the gorge, her machines working with mechanical precision that made the watching aliens exchange increasingly nervous glances. Foundation curing will be complete in 30 minutes, she announced, wiping sweat from her forehead. Carter, are those cable assemblies ready? Loaded and waiting, Carter replied from where he was coordinating the assembly of massive cable spools. Morrison, confirm cable tension specifications? Already programmed into the installation system, Morrison called back. Elena, as soon as those foundations cure, we can start cable placement. Engineer Flux OM moved closer to Webb, his environmental suit crackling with what seemed like agitation. Commander Webb, this timeline is impossible. Even with your unconventional methods, proper safety protocols alone should require. Engineer Flux OM, Webb interrupted gently, safety protocols are built into everything we do. We're not cutting corners, we're just not wasting time on procedures that don't add value. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline form was rotating slowly, trying to track all the simultaneous activities. Commander, in all our observations of galactic engineering projects, we have never witnessed anything approaching this level of coordination and speed. Webb smiled as he watched his team work. Rodriguez was already positioning her equipment for cable installation, Morrison was double-checking structural calculations on his portable workstation, and Carter was organizing the deck sections for rapid assembly. Ambassador, Webb said proudly, you're about to see why humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. We don't just solve problems, we make the impossible look routine. Part 3, The Construction Marathon. Cables across the void. Foundations are cured and ready, Sergeant Rodriguez announced exactly on schedule. Her construction mech was already in position, the massive cable launcher mounted and aimed across the Crimson Gorge. Morrison, confirm trajectory calculations one more time. Lieutenant Morrison looked up from his workstation, confidence radiating from his expression. Trajectory locked, wind compensation calculated, gravity differential accounted for. Elena, you're good to fire when ready. Dr. Ythera moved closer to the edge, her multiple limbs adjusting recording equipment for optimal angles. The span distance is 203 meters, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Standard galactic protocol would require precision guidance systems, atmospheric modeling, backup trajectory systems. Sometimes the old ways work best, Corporal Carter called out with a grin. He was standing next to a device that looked remarkably like a primitive crossbow, scaled up to launch cables across impossible distances. Rodriguez, give M the full show. The first impossible shot. Rodriguez's fingers danced across the control interface of her mech. The cable launcher rotated slightly, compensating for atmospheric conditions that human instincts could feel but alien instruments struggled to measure. A moment of perfect stillness settled over the construction site. Firing, Rodriguez announced. The cable shot across the gorge with a deep thrumming sound that made the alien step back instinctively. 203 meters of empty space disappeared in less than 4 seconds, the magnetic anchor slamming into the prepared foundation socket with precision that made Engineer Flux OM's environmental suit flicker in disbelief. Perfect placement, Morrison confirmed, checking his readings. Elena, that was textbook. If textbooks covered impossible shots across alien gorges. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline form was chiming with what seemed like involuntary musical tones. The precision, without guidance systems, how did you account for atmospheric density variations? Experience, Webb replied simply. Elena's made shots like this before, just never quite this far or with this much riding on it. Building from both sides. With the first cable secured, the human team shifted into the next phase of their operation. Rodriguez split her attention between the primary construction mech and the 2 autonomous support units, coordinating a complex dance of machinery that made the watching aliens increasingly nervous. Support cables going up now, she announced as her smaller mechs began positioning secondary cable lines. Morrison, I need those stay calculations updated for the current wind conditions. Already done, Morrison replied, transferring new data to Rodriguez's displays. Compensating for the pressure differential at 150 meters elevation. Your support mechs are positioned perfectly. General Voxneen moved closer to Commander Webb, his armor plates shifting with what might have been professional admiration. Commander, this simultaneous construction from both sides, the coordination requirements alone should make this impossible. General, Webb said, watching his team work with obvious pride, impossible is just another word for, hasn't been done yet. My people have been making the impossible routine for thousands of years. The unexpected challenge. 90 minutes remaining, and the bridge structure was taking shape with mechanical precision. Carbon fiber struts were being positioned and locked into place while the main deck sections waited on hovering transport platforms. Everything was proceeding exactly according to Morrison's accelerated timeline. Then Corporal Carter's voice cut through the construction noise with a tone that made everyone freeze. "Commander, we've got a problem." Webb was beside Carter in seconds, followed closely by the alien observers. Carter was staring at his geological scanner, his expression grim. "What is it, Ben?" Webb asked. "Seismic activity," Carter replied, pointing at his display. "Small tremors, but consistent. The local tectonic system is more active than our surveys indicated. If this keeps up, it could affect cable tension and structural integrity." Dr. Ythera's instruments immediately began scanning the area. "Confirmed," she announced after a moment. "Microseismic activity measuring 2.1 on the standard scale. This level of geological instability would normally require complete project reassessment. Adaptation under pressure." Engineer Fluxom's environmental suit was sparking with what seemed like vindication. "Commander Webb, surely this confirms the necessity of proper geological surveys and extended planning phases. You cannot simply adapt to seismic instability without." "Morrison," Webb interrupted, "options?" Lieutenant Morrison was already running calculations on his portable workstation, his fingers flying across holographic displays. "I can compensate with dynamic tension adjusters on the main cables." "Carter, can you modify the foundation anchors for variable loading?" "Already on it," Carter replied, pulling specialized equipment from his seemingly bottomless tool kit. "If Elena can position her mechs for real-time tension adjustment, we can turn this into a feature instead of a bug." Ambassador Kethtar moved closer, his harmonics carrying undertones of amazement. "You are adapting your entire structural design in real time? This level of engineering flexibility is unprecedented. Turning problems into solutions." Rodriguez was already repositioning her construction mechs, her movements fluid and confident despite the complexity of the adjustments. "Morrison, feed me the dynamic parameters directly to my control system. I can have the mechs monitor and adjust cable tension automatically." "Data stream is live," Morrison confirmed. "Elena, you'll see tension adjustments highlighted in real time. The system will compensate for seismic variations up to 3.2 on the standard scale." Dr. Ythera's recording devices were working at maximum capacity. "This is remarkable. You are not merely adapting to the seismic activity, you are incorporating it into your structural design as a dynamic element." General Voxneen's armor plates were shifting with what the humans had learned to recognize as intense concentration. "Commander Webb, this approach to engineering, it is completely contrary to standard galactic methodology. How do you maintain structural integrity without fixed parameters?" "General," Webb replied, watching his team implement their real-time modifications with practiced efficiency, "fixed parameters assume a static universe. We design for change because change is the only constant." The bridge takes shape. With the seismic challenges incorporated into their design, the human team resumed construction with renewed energy. The bridge was now more than just a span across the gorge, it was a dynamic structure that could adapt to changing conditions while maintaining full structural integrity. "Deck sections going into place," Rodriguez announced as her mechs began the delicate process of positioning the walking surface. "Morrison, confirm load distribution calculations for dynamic conditions." "Confirmed and optimized," Morrison replied. Elena, the magnetic coupling system will automatically adjust for structural movement. This bridge isn't just going to span the gorge, it's going to dance with it. Carter looked up from his final equipment checks with a satisfied expression. All systems green, Commander. 60 minutes ahead of original timeline, even with the seismic modifications. Engineer Flux OM moved closer to Webb, his environmental suit flickering with what seemed like confusion. Commander, your team has not only overcome unexpected obstacles but has actually improved your construction timeline. How is this possible? Webb smiled as he watched the final deck sections lock into place. Engineer Fluxome, that's the thing about humans. We don't just overcome obstacles, we turn them into advantages. Give us a problem, and we'll find 3 ways to make it work for us instead of against us. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline form was rotating slowly, trying to process everything he was witnessing. Commander Webb, in all our galactic engineering databases, there is no precedent for this level of adaptive construction. Your species appears to thrive on impossibility. The bridge was nearly complete, stretching across the Crimson Gorge like a testament to human ingenuity and determination. And they still had 45 minutes left on their impossible 3-hour deadline. Part 4, Against All Odds. The Final Push. With 45 minutes remaining on their impossible deadline, the human team entered what Commander Webb privately called the crucible moment, the point where everything that could go wrong usually did. The bridge structure was 90% complete, but the most critical elements still lay ahead. Final deck sections in position, Sergeant Rodriguez reported from her primary mech. Morrison, I'm seeing some microvibrations in the support structure. Nothing dangerous, but worth monitoring. Lieutenant Morrison was already analyzing the data streams. Confirmed, Elena. It's actually the seismic adaptation system working exactly as designed. The bridge is automatically adjusting to ground movement. Dr. Ythera's instruments were recording frantically. The structural flexibility is remarkable. Most galactic engineering requires rigid specifications to maintain integrity, but your design actually becomes stronger through movement. Crisis in the depths. Suddenly, Carter's voice cut through the construction noise with an urgency that made everyone freeze. Commander, major problem. Foundation anchor Delta 7 is showing stress fractures. Webb was beside Carter in seconds, the alien observers clustering behind them. Carter's geological scanner was showing alarming readings from the eastern foundation point. Bedrock composition isn't what our surveys indicated, Carter explained rapidly. There's a layer of crystalline material that's more brittle than expected. The dynamic tension system is putting more stress on it than it can handle. Engineer Flux OM's environmental suit sparked with what seemed like vindication. Commander Webb, this confirms the absolute necessity of extensive geological surveys. Without proper foundation integrity, your entire structure is compromised. General Voxneen's armor plates shifted nervously. Standard protocol would require immediate work cessation and complete foundation redesign. This could delay completion by weeks. Leadership under fire. Commander Webb studied the readings for exactly 15 seconds, then looked up with the calm expression his team had learned to associate with their leader's most brilliant moments. Options, people. Fast. Morrison was already running calculations. We can redistribute the load across the remaining anchor points, but that will require real-time recalibration of the entire cable system. Do it, Webb ordered. Elena, can your mechs handle dynamic load redistribution while maintaining construction pace? Rodriguez grinned from her operator's seat. Commander, my machines can handle anything you can throw at them. Just give me the new parameters. Carter was already unpacking specialized equipment. I can stabilize the failing anchor with emergency reinforcement. It'll hold long enough for the load redistribution to take effect. Improvisation at its finest. Dr. Ythera moved closer to observe as the human team implemented their emergency modifications. This level of real-time engineering adaptation, our databases contain no precedent for such flexibility under crisis conditions. That's because most species think engineering is about building perfect structures, Morrison replied while rapidly updating the control systems. Humans learned long ago that perfect structures fail when conditions change. We build structures that adapt. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline form was chiming with complex harmonics. Lieutenant Morrison, you are essentially redesigning your bridge while building it. The mathematical complexity alone should require extensive computer modeling. Ambassador, Morrison said with a confident smile, human engineers have been doing this kind of improvisation for millennia. We learn to think 3 steps ahead while adapting to whatever the universe throws at us. The dangerous descent. Carter's emergency repair required him to rappel down the gorge wall to reach the failing anchor point. As he prepared his equipment, the alien observers watched with growing amazement at the casual way humans approached what they considered an extremely dangerous operation. Corporal Carter, General Voxneen called out, that descent places you at significant risk. Standard safety protocols would require backup teams, emergency medical support, environmental monitoring. General, Carter replied while checking his climbing gear, sometimes the best safety protocol is knowing what you're doing and getting it done fast. He disappeared over the edge with casual confidence that made Engineer Fluxoem's suit flicker with nervous energy. Within minutes, his voice was crackling over the comm system from 150 meters down the gorge wall. Foundation anchor accessed. Beginning emergency reinforcement procedures. Rodriguez, I need you to reduce tension on cables 7 through 12 while I work. Tension reduction confirmed, Rodriguez replied, her mechs making precise adjustments that maintained bridge stability while giving Carter the working space he needed. System integration. While Carter worked on the emergency repairs, Morrison and Rodriguez coordinated the load redistribution that would permanently solve the Foundation crisis. Their movements were synchronized with mechanical precision, each adjustment flowing seamlessly into the next. Load redistribution at 60% completion, Morrison announced. Elena, rotate your primary mech 15 degrees and begin tension adjustment sequence delta. Confirmed, Rodriguez replied, her massive machine moving with surprising grace. Ben, how's that anchor looking? Carter's voice came back strong and confident. Reinforcement complete. This anchor is now rated for twice the original load specifications. Sometimes emergency repairs are better than the original design. Dr. Yethera's instruments were working overtime to document the rapid problem-solving process. The speed of your adaptation is unprecedented. Most galactic engineering teams would require days to implement such modifications. The moment of truth. 30 minutes remained on their impossible deadline when Morrison announced the completion of the load redistribution. All systems optimized and stable, Commander. The bridge is now actually stronger than our original design. Webb walked to the edge of the completed structure, the alien observers following cautiously. The bridge stretched across the Crimson Gorge like a testament to human ingenuity, its carbon fiber cables gleaming in the alien sunlight. Final safety check, Webb ordered. Full system verification. Rodriguez ran her mechs through a complete diagnostic sequence while Morrison verified all structural calculations. Carter emerged from the gorge, his emergency repairs having transformed a potential disaster into an engineering improvement. All systems green, Morrison reported. Structural integrity at 112% of design specifications. The emergency modifications actually improved overall performance. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline form was rotating slowly as he processed what he had witnessed. Commander Webb, your team has not merely completed an impossible task, you have exceeded your own design specifications while overcoming multiple unexpected challenges. Final preparations. With 15 minutes remaining, the human team began their final preparations for the bridge's inaugural crossing. Equipment was secured, safety systems were activated, and final calibrations were completed. Bridge is fully operational and ready for load testing, Rodriguez announced. All dynamic systems are functioning within optimal parameters. Engineer Flux OM moved closer to Webb, his environmental suit crackling with what seemed like amazement. Commander, your team has accomplished something that our best engineers deemed impossible. How do you explain such capability? Webb looked at his team, Morrison checking final calculations, Rodriguez securing her equipment, Carter organizing tools with mechanical precision. They were tired but triumphant, having once again proven that humans could make the impossible look routine. Engineer Fluxoem, Webb replied with quiet pride, humans have been achieving the impossible for so long that we've forgotten it's supposed to be impossible. We don't see obstacles, we see opportunities to get creative. The bridge was complete with 12 minutes to spare, standing as proof that human engineering could accomplish anything when backed by ingenuity, teamwork, and the refusal to accept limitations.